Happy Monday. Thanks for tuning in. Sorry to be away again for a bit. There's a few reasons for that, including just being really busy, which, I mean, is good most of the time until it's just a few too many things, but mostly it's good. My dreams have been sort of choppy lately, like where I'm not remembering huge chunks of them. So there's been less of that to share. That's one of the reasons. And also because, honestly, the events of the last bunch of weeks with these shootings, right after the SCOTUS decision leak, and then it happening right here in our hometown, my hometown of Buffalo, with the shooting at the Tops Market on the east side of Buffalo, which people are really reeling from still. Obviously, it's been a lot. It's been a lot for us here, and it's been a lot for everybody everywhere. And a few things that the other psychics on YouTube that I watch pretty regularly said this week made me reflect further on all of the events, and I want to see if I can tie a few different ideas together for you today. I'll mention off the top that the bits of the dream from last night that I remember were about spending time with young people. Like it was almost like I was at a bar hanging out with 20 somethings, which is kind of not far off from my weekends sometimes, because when I get gigs at local bars, a lot of times the audience can range a lot. The place I played on Saturday was called Public House on the Lake in Hamburg, which is right on Lake Erie. So literally, like, your view is right out onto the lake, and it's just beautiful. And actually, I posted a picture of that on my Rob Falgiano Instagram. If you feel like joining it, it's you can look me up under Real Rob Falgiano, which is kind of a parody of President 45's Real DT account, because somehow there is a fake Rob Falgiano account that has no followers that exists under my name, and so my real one is Real Rob Falgiano. So if you want to see the picture where I played on Saturday, it's up, and the audience was basically like 20 something to 50 something was the range. But the place I played the week before that was pretty much all 20 somethings, which is funny, because I call and think of them as kids, and I got to go in there and try to win them over. And I usually do. I've gotten pretty good at what I do, and knowing audiences and how to play to them. So anyway, so in the dream last night, the bits that I remember, what the overall sensation of the dream was sort of like of the sort of the chaotic thinking of young people right now with all of the stressors that are going on. I mean, everybody's feeling it. I'm certainly feeling it. I'm sure you are too. But I think we forget how few coping mechanisms young people have sometimes for dealing with trauma. They don't have the experience that we have as we get older. The sustained exposure that we have that sort of builds your defenses at the same time as it, hurts your heart to see these repetitive patterns of really terrible things. So while we hope for change, yeah, and in the dream, like, it was also tied in with technology, where it felt like very futuristic, like the kids were just so preoccupied with technology and keeping up with each other and keeping up with the pace of modern life, where we process just like a ton of information all the time. The pace of modern life is very fast compared to 100 or 200 years ago. It's almost like it would almost be inconceivable to people who lived a few hundred years ago, the amount of like information that we process in a day, or in my course of my job when it's in the busy season, like the amount of information that comes at me and gets put out by me in response is unreal. And literally at the end of the day, sometimes it feels like my brain is throbbing, and I'm ready for either to get on an exercise bike or grab a cocktail or both. So there's all of that. So the dream had that feeling of like, wow, we're like speeding into the present. And then that sort of tied in with, like I said, what the psychics were saying this week, which I thought was interesting. Two things I want to touch on. Sterling, psychic medium, in his reading yesterday, he emphasized a few things. He emphasized that the souls of the children who were, we'll call it what it is, murdered at, ironically, Robb Elementary School, ROBB, in Uvalde, Texas. He said that they were old souls, meaning they had incarnated here many times, and that they essentially volunteered for that mission, if you will, and that, like it or not, and I often do not like it, that is how things kind of work on this planet. Like, it takes these huge catastrophic events, these, to create the change we seek, which is kind of crazy, because that's so unsatisfying in so many ways to any of us who are so tired of seeing the same patterns play out over and over. Yet the history of mankind on the planet so far seems to show us that change is much slower than we would often desire. I mean, you name this, the social injustice, and justice is slow. So, again, if you're dissatisfied with that, and so am I, but it is just how it is here. And it's a weird thought to think that someone in a soul form could volunteer to be murdered at a young age. Yet, I guess it's possible. I mean, I certainly believe it's possible. It's just hard to conceive of it, because you think of, for the families of those who were killed, that's no that, if they, even if they knew that, which they probably don't, that would be no consolation at all, because you wouldn't think of your 8, 9, 10-year-old child as an old soul and be like, okay, well, that makes it okay because they sacrifice themselves for this greater purpose. But that does appear to be how spirit works to some extent, because COVID is the exact same thing. COVID killed millions, and yet it took, without COVID, it's almost entirely certain or highly likely that President 45 would have been reelected. And if that had happened, our democracy might already be completely lost at this point in time. So I do believe, as many psychics have also said, that President Biden was essentially divinely chosen or guided towards the presidency, and that he is the right president for these perilous times, because he is compassionate, he is reasonable, he's presiding over a tough time for lots of reasons, including the shortages that we are still experiencing as a result of COVID, and then add the Russian invasion of Ukraine to disrupt supply chains further. And it's just something we have to deal with. I mean, nobody likes to see the gas prices where they were, or the food prices going up, and inflation, of 10% or whatever. And people who have savings stocks like myself, through work, I have it's called a 403b, but it's essentially a 401k, and that lost 10% of its value, but it will come back. And you can't put a price on any of these things anyway. It's not something, I never really worry about that. I always figure it corrects in time, and it'll be okay. And if we have to pay a little more for goods in order for to help stand up to Russia, because we've banned their energy imports and things like that, then that's just what we have to do, because it's the right thing to do. Sometimes the right thing to do is the economically difficult thing to do, and there's some shared sacrifice in that. So that's my feeling on that. But Sterling said, so he said that, and I thought that was really interesting about the kids, and I could believe it, that they came here for that mission, and that, much like COVID, it took this like series of events, including the shooting here in Buffalo, to finally sort of tip things towards gun reform, or maybe even the banning of assault weapons in a wider way. Because I guess Australia banned assault weapons around maybe 26 years ago when they had a major shooting. Like they just did it across the board, and they haven't had one at that scale since. And those were different times in so many ways. Like even the right wing of that country and this country were much more reasonable. But with with money, with big money often comes big problems, and the fact that the United States has been a prosperous country for such a long time contributes to our problems, because now our prosperity is working against us, and that, the gun lobby, there's so much money in arms manufacturing, weapons manufacturing generally, and then the gun industry. And then they try to basically buy off Congress people with their donations, and they succeed to a large extent with the Republicans. But now the Republicans are finding it nearly untenable to support the NRA in the same direct way. And I do expect change. I do expect a revision of the gun laws in some form. I do expect maybe assault weapons to be banned in some form. But again, I would caution, it may take a couple years to get that right. And I also believe that it's highly likely that it'll take more seats in the Senate, which I do expect the Democrats to get in the fall as predicted, to increase their majority and to be able to get over the hump of the obstructionists in the GOP, and also Manchin and Sinema, who are obstructionists within our own party, and perhaps even eliminate the filibuster so that Biden might consider some more radical moves, including maybe adding justices to the Supreme Court if we don't get a couple of retirements anytime soon. Like, I mean, Thomas, I mean, he should be long gone because his wife is basically a traitor, and he covered for her by voting against the disclosure of the January 6th documents that she was a part of, with her emails and her direct solicitations to state, what is it, secretaries of state that control the vote in the various states, where she, you know, appealed to them to overturn election results where 45 lost. I mean, just this incredible traitorous behavior that is as yet going unpunished, but is definitely in the public sphere of knowledge. So again, it's slow. It's not satisfying for it to be this slow, but it's just how it is, I guess. So, and that speaks to another point that Sterling made in his video that I wanted to comment on, that I have been wondering about lately. He said his guides told him that we are in a reset on Earth of a 30-year period between 2020 and 2050, resetting essentially civilization and democracy. Well, that's 30 years. I mean, if I live to 2050, I'll be nearly an 80-year-old man, and I'm sure many of you will be of advanced age too, if you're not already. And that feels very unsatisfying if we have to quote unquote wait until 2050 to see a corrected world, if you will. Oh, shoot. A corrected world, if you will. Sorry, I got an itch. So what I'm getting at is, if it really will be 30 years of slow change to get to like kind of the destination we want to get to, we have to live in the meantime. We have to not sit and hold our breath and be like, when is this all going to stop? I mean, that is a common feeling, but at the same time, we have to go on with daily life and try to, keep our spirits high and keep up with our prayers and keep our hope, and not succumb to anger or hatred or incivility, which is really hard to do sometimes. I fail all the time, lose my temper, and that's also why I wasn't on for a few weeks very much, because after the shooting in Buffalo and SCOTUS, and then the shooting in Texas, I just felt devastated, and I felt angry, and I didn't think I could come on and offer much, and I didn't want to come on and be that way. I wanted to keep it as positive as possible, because it's no use to hand wring and be sad and to spread that energy or to put that energy into you or onto you. It's not why I want to be here. So, but I think what I'm also trying to do is, I think I agree with Sterling in that this is going to take some time, and so we have to sort of manage our expectations too. Our patience is required because in the long form of history, 30 years is not a long time, but in the day to day life of living it, it sure feels long. So I understand where anyone would feel a little bit of if you feel despair, it's understandable, but try to turn it back into hope as soon as you can so that you don't get dragged into that cloud. And to that point, it reminds me of my friend Marla, who she's an astrologer. Her channel is called Twin Astrology, and she gave me, I've mentioned before, an excellent astrological reading a couple years ago that was so on the mark. It surprised me in so many ways. Though I must admit, when I watch her videos, sometimes I don't understand everything she's talking about because she really gets down into the technical aspects of astrology and this twin flame concept that I'm not super familiar with. So, to be very truthful and fair, I don't always totally understand the stuff in her videos, but I do believe that she is a talented astrologer, and her reading for me at least was so spot on. But the point that I'm getting to here is that when I talked to her, I don't know if it's in specifically one of her videos, but when I talked to her about the timeline and series of events, I remember it was several years ago. It was pre-COVID. She and I talked about the election, well, 45's tenure, and I was thinking back in 2018 even, I was really hoping that Trump would fall well before the 2020 election, that something would happen and he would be either impeached or removed or stepped down or some other thing, and no such luck. And I remember that she said to me, in her opinion, that this transition to the age of Aquarius was going to take longer than that, and that we had to live through the chaos of things a bit longer. And my recollection of that is that she really felt like the things weren't going to subside and start to be more normal until even 2025, 2026. And I was like, are you kidding? Hearing that back in 2018 was not what I wanted to hear, so I didn't want to believe it. But now, when I think about it, astrological phenomena is so real, and cycles are real in my strong opinion, because we just see it. Like, we are seeing this cycle, this period of Earth, the age of Pisces, come to an end in extremely dramatic fashion. And so, as the old energies are getting squeezed off the planet as we raise the vibration, they ain't going out quietly. And so, the chaos is essentially just piling up. And that is very unsatisfying too. But here's where I want to tie in something that Marianne at Revealing Light Tarot said yesterday or today, where she said it was, again, her sense that time is in some sense speeding up. And the reason she said that was because she said that what to us feels like just additional chaos and just one thing after another, that in terms of sort of spirit's purpose, that's on purpose. Meaning, if we have these series of terrible events closer to each other and they happen faster, then it gets us to the solution faster, if you understand what I mean. And she said that it is highly likely that the sorry, my toe is just bugging me. She said it as highly likely that the shootings, the recent shootings, they are the tipping point for finally some change in the law in the United States regarding guns. And so, in that sense, those events had to happen, and were intended by Spirit, and that these things coming one after the other is also necessary because it actually, as it's traumatic to us, but it speeds along the process a bit, which matches my dream, where things were speeding up again, and there was a sense that we were like really whipping into the future, into a sci-fi future at an increased pace, which also ties into the dream that I've described before here, about that I had last year about what I'll describe as a correction of reality by higher forces, where I dreamt that I was seeing sort of like cosmic celestial beings actually snipping time out of each day here on Earth in order to correct the timeline, because the delays to justice have been so numerous and continuous for so many years now that the path of our timeline has been, if you think of our timeline as a circle, as it appeared in my dream, like a circular orbit, it's been stretched artificially. Reality has actually been stretched artificially to delay the inevitable raising of the Earth's vibration. And so this cannot be. Spirit cannot allow reality to essentially be stretched to the breaking point. That's not allowed. And so their solution now, apparently, if my dream is correct and the other psychics are correct, is that there's an active effort by Spirit to snip time out of each day in order to correct and make the orbit of our timeline, put it back on course with where it's supposed to be, and also so that it is aligned with the intended timelines of other galaxies, perhaps other universes, perhaps other dimensions. It's a heady thing, but in the dream that I saw, this cosmic dream with all these, stacked timelines and realities, it represented all of the realities that exist. And when Earth's reality is stretched out and delayed artificially by the bad actors here, it causes disruptions in for the other realities as well. It's like for reality to work properly, they all have to be together. They all have to be aligned, which speaks to sort of the mechanical nature of the universe, and what we see in astrology, the marriage of a sort of mechanical universe with magic and the power of the creator to basically run this universe, even if it's on God, the supercomputer. And I think of God, as I've said many times before, as a combination between the ultimate supercomputer and the ultimate creative artist. So God is both highly emotional, highly creative, and also highly mathematical and structured, because that is how the universe appears. The physical laws of reality are very strict, and astrological phenomena are therefore real because they relate to the mechanical orbits of planets around us and systems around us, and everything is gear like. But then, the magic is because we essentially we can't exist without the magical nature of the creator, because the creator is an impossible being who somehow exists, as a paradoxical being who somehow exists. So now I'm wandering a little, but you get the point, I think. So, yeah, it's possible now that we are in a corrective period. Time may be speeding up, as Marianne alluded to, and as my last couple dreams alluded to. And young people are some of the ones who are really struggling with, I mean, everybody is, but struggling to process just the sheer volume of things that have happened. And so that's kind of like the state of where we're at right now from my point of view. So I guess, again, I'm urging patience, and we all need to engage in self-care, which is very obvious, where you need to, if you can only consume so much news a day before it starts to really feel like it's inside of you in a negative way, then just consume what you need and get out, and then do the other things in your life that give you joy and help you to spread joy and light. Like for me, as I often say, music is a huge way I'm able to reset myself, either by writing it, performing it, recording it, listening to it. I mean, at night, pretty much every night I listen to music in bed. I put something on very quietly that's relaxing. And even my cat Gabe really likes it. I can tell. And certain songs I believe are even familiar to him, and he almost knows, like, okay, well, it's time. It's time for bed now because this certain music is on. And speaking of Gabe, we have a new addition to the family. My neighbor Rose, who is psychic and very strong animal communicator. In fact, she helped to locate a cat the other day by actually. I think it was the first time she did this. She said she was able to do what I've heard other psychics do, which is see through that cat's eyes. So it wasn't that she could see where the cat was. She could see she she focused on seeing what the cat saw. So she saw through the cat's eyes and she could see that this cat, a neighborhood cat that was lost, was kind of like stuck under a neighbor's porch or something, like got itself in a position where it was stuck. And so she described what she saw to the owners, and then they realized that it could be their neighbor's porch, and then they found this cat. So Rose helped with the cat rescue there. But in terms of our local neighborhood, I've mentioned before that Rose regularly feeds our neighborhood strays. She's like 3 doors down from me, and I buy when I buy my cat food every month, I give her a couple cases to contribute to that cause. And then we learned that there were a couple new strays in the neighborhood that we wanted to see if we could help. So there was, you might recall, I mentioned Dolly. She was this beautiful black and orange and white mix, and Rose suspected she might be pregnant. And I guess the terms are 3 months usually, and it turned out that she was. She was 2 months pregnant when Rose basically befriended her, then captured her, and she took Dolly in. And it's a good thing that she did, because Dolly, once she was cleaned up, they figured out that she needed a C-section to have the 7 babies, and if she had had to have those babies in the wild, they would probably all be dead. So they're not. They survived. They all survived. Dolly's a sweetie. She's in recovery for a few more months from the C-section, but she's doing really well. And then she'll be up for adoption. And I contributed to the surrender fee that Rose and I paid. And I think it's the West Side Pet Clinic here, does very affordable cleanups of these cats, and the cat care is excellent. So we split that cost, and I was glad to do so. And then eventually Dolly will be up for adoption too. And I had thought about taking her, but I don't think it's going to happen, because instead I've got a different guy. I've got a cat that Rose named Seamus, which I have kind of shortened to Shay because I prefer it. And Shay is a red cat, and I saw him over the winter a few times, and that's when he was first out, because she thinks he was out about 6 months. And Shay, he was literally at my back door like in January, like in the middle of winter, and just looking at me from the yard. And I thought, oh, I can't stand seeing this little guy out here. He's about 3 years old. And but I didn't take him in at that time. I just felt like I couldn't at that point. I couldn't do it to Gabe. And then I saw him another time too. I saw him out in the street when I was out on the porch one time, and I called to him in the street. And as soon as he saw me, he just sat down and like he listened. And I just thought, oh, something about this cat. So after Rose finished with Dolly, we talked about it, and we decided that Shay would be the next capture if we could get him, and that we would take him in and get him cleaned up and try to find a place for him. So once she was able to do that, he was very cooperative with the vets, and gentle. And he is very gentle, and he's let me pet him a lot. So then Rose had him in recovery from the from being neutered. And and then we talked about it, and I just decided, okay, I'm gonna take him. I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try and integrate him with Gabe. So it's going okay. It's going about as well as you would expect with two male cats. But Shay is coming around. He's getting more used to being here in the apartment, and he seems really glad. He loves being in the windows because he can smell the outside, and he hasn't tried to get out or anything. So I feel like he knows now that he is planted. So that's the latest from here. There are a few more strays in the neighborhood, but I've hit my quota for now. And then I'll talk with Rose about what we can do for those and whether or not we will try to get any more cleaned up and maybe into the foster system. And she has certainly taken in her share. I think she has 3 cats right now. She had 4, and then her eldest cat died. So she's very passionate and compassionate about it. So yeah, we're trying to do our part over here, and having Shay now, I think once the cats adjust to each other, that will be good energy, more good energy in this space, which is something I think about a lot, just energy in general. And so when we do these things, you know, we're making our contribution to the better world, which is pretty much all anybody can do. It's no one person can ever really save the world, but the efforts that we make on a daily basis can definitely make a difference. They're meaningful. That's why everyone can contribute, no matter their age or capabilities or whatever else they have going on in their life. Just by holding the space the way that we do, with compassion as much as we can, is very helpful. And of course, again, we fail sometimes. We lose our patience. We get angry. We get frustrated with other people. But the more we act from our best selves, the better things go. It's just how it is. There's just no way around it. So that's my piece for today. Thoughts for the week, and maybe I would say a tempering of expectations. I mean, I hope that gun legislation, especially, will come within a year or two at the latest, but it could take that long. But who knows? Maybe things will move faster than even I think, given how strongly people feel about it. And I thought it was awesome when Beto O'Rourke showed up and gave it to the governor of Texas, Abbott. And I do believe what the other readers are saying, like Linda G, that if it is a fair election, or a reasonably fair election, and there's not a bunch of cheating, then Beto could well be the next governor of Texas, which would be huge. It would have a ripple effect across the country, since Texas is such a huge state. For it to turn blue would affect a lot of other things positively, in my opinion. So we will pray and hope that that is also the case. But people are definitely ready to stand up. They were before, but now the resolve is even stronger. And actually, I'm even working on a song about some current events, and definitely about gun culture, and how if a child has to go to school afraid every day for his or her life, how is that really freedom? That's not freedom, because it's not freedom from fear. And this was pointed out by one of the psychics in one of the readings. I can't remember which. Maybe you remember and can mention it in the comments. But I thought it was an excellent point, and so I sort of incorporated that into the song that I'm writing. That a child who isn't free from fear isn't really free at all, and that we have to rethink what freedom means. And if that means adjustments to the Second Amendment, then it's time, because they certainly didn't envision semi-automatic weapons back in 1776. How could they? So, yeah, I think that's everything. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe. These things do help to circulate videos. I don't know if I'll ever get to 1,000 viewers, but I think it sure would be fun because then I could post on the community page and I could do lives, which you require 1,000 minimum for that. So do me a favor and pass me along to some friends. And your comments are, of course, always welcome because a lot of people who watch me are very tuned in and psychic themselves, and so I'm always curious to hear what your impressions and thoughts are too. And that's all from here. I'm going to take advantage of the beautiful weather and go for a bike ride to the harbor, and then we'll see what else the day brings. I did some yard work yesterday, including painting, staining my new fence in the backyard. So I've earned a play day. Okay. All right. Be well. Take care. See you soon.